Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Hockey Talk with TG Podcast. I'm Ty Glenn. Hopefully, you guys are having a great Friday. Got lots of NHL news to discuss, so make sure to stay tuned in to this episode until the end. As always, do me a favor, hit that like, subscribe button on YouTube. Make sure that you're following the Hockey Talk with TG Podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. And again, you subscribe to the YouTube channel. We are with you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 11:30 a.m. to noon Central Time, 12:30 p.m. 1 p.m. Eastern Time. So make sure that you give this podcast a follow so you can stay up to date on the latest hockey news that comes out and also the latest episodes of the Hockey Talk with TG Podcast, your number one podcast for all things hockey. So highly encourage the non-followers, the non-followers who listen to this podcast and aren't following the podcast to go follow right now. This is your number one podcast for all things hockey. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get started into the NHL news for today. So we'll kick things off with recapping Game 2 of the Eastern Conference Finals, and the Panthers had a 5-0 shutout win over the Carolina Hurricanes. Sergei Bobrovsky made 17 saves in net for his third shutout of the Stanley Cup playoffs. And the Panthers lead this best-of-7 series 2-0. And Sam Bennett, he had a great game for the Florida Panthers. He had 2 goals and assists for a 3-point night, marking his second multi-goal game of the Stanley Cup playoffs. And Matthew Tkachuk, he had a goal and an assist for a 2-point night. And Gustav Forsling, former Chicago Blackhawk, and Alexander Barkov, team captain of the Florida Panthers, they also scored for Florida in this win. And Carter Verhaeghe, he contributed 3 assists, playing a pivotal role in Florida's offensive dominance. And also, bad news for the Florida Panthers. Their leading goal scorer in Sam Reinhart, he did leave this game in the first period due to a lower body injury after a hit from Sebastian Aho, the Carolina Hurricanes, and he did not return after that. Don't know how much is this going to hurt the Florida Panthers, but the Florida Panthers still have some other skilled, great players on their team, but fortunately they're going to be without their best goal scorer in Sam Reinhart. But again, it shouldn't hurt that much for the Florida Panthers because they're still a high-powered offensive team. And for the Carolina Hurricanes, Freddie Anderson, he was pulled in this game. He allowed 4 goals on 16 shots faced in net. And so Pierre Kochetkov had to come into this game in the third period. And he made 4 saves on 5 shots faced in net. And fun fact, the Hurricanes are now 0-14 in the Eastern Conference Finals, dating all the way back to 2009. And of course, if you were a Hurricanes fan that just heard that factual statement, probably wasn't a fun fact for you. But yeah, when it comes to Eastern Conference Finals, the Hurricanes have not been doing well. Their last Eastern Conference Final win, I believe, was in 2002 because they went all the way to the Stanley Cup Final that year and faced the Detroit Red Wings, and they lost to the Red Wings in the Stanley Cup Final. So yeah, their last Stanley Cup Final win was in 2002, and ever since 2009. It hasn't been going well for the Carolina Hurricanes. They were swept by the eventual Stanley Cup champion Pittsburgh Penguins. And then in 2019, they were swept by the Boston Bruins. And then in 2023, they were swept by the Florida Panthers. And now they lost 2 games of the series to the Florida Panthers. But hey, it's not over yet. There's still time for the Carolina Hurricanes to turn this around and get their first Eastern Conference Final win since 2002. Anyway, their first Eastern Conference Final win was 2006. that was their last Eastern Conference Final win. So, excuse me for that statement. But they did go to the Cup Final in 2002, but they also made the Cup Final in 2006. So that was their last Eastern Conference Final win in 2006. So, just came to me just now. So, yeah, excuse me for that last statement. But, again, still time for the Hurricanes to get back into the series and get their first Eastern Conference Final win since 2006. And Game 3 will be this Saturday in Florida at 7 o'clock p.m. Central Time. This game will air on TNT, True TV, and HBO Max for you guys to watch. But now let's go to a team, or I should say player, that's not playing the Stanley Cup playoffs in Mitch Marner. So Mitch Marner, of course, on the Toronto Maple Leafs were eliminated from the Stanley Cup playoffs after that Game 7 loss to the defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers. And I want to talk about in the Hockey Talk with TG podcast, what is next for Mitch Marner? That is the big question. What is next for Mitch Marner? What is he going to do in the offseason? His 6-year, $10.9 million contract that he signed with the Leafs in September 2019 has now expired. He is set to become a UFA in the summer of 2025. But when he was asked about his future, Mitch Marner said, and I quote, that he hasn't processed anything yet. And of course, Mitch Marner, he's coming off of a career high 102 point season where he had 102 points, obviously, in 81 games played, 27 goals, 75 assists for 102 points in 81 games played, setting a franchise record for points by right winger. And of course, Mitch Marner is the only Toronto Maple Leafs player to hit the free agent market. It's going to be Matthew Knies and John Tavares as well. So this could be the end of this Toronto Maple Leafs this could be the end of the Leafs core of Austin Matthews, William Nylander, Mitch Marner, and John Tavares. After, losing in Game 7 again, this time to the Florida Panthers. They lost 6-1 in Game 7 to the Florida Panthers. Which brings me to my next topic of this. What are some great landing spots for Mitch Marner? And I have thought of 6 teams that I think Mitch Marner could be a great fit for. Number 1, I'm going with the Philadelphia Flyers. So just like the Blackhawks, Sharks, and Ducks, the Flyers are also in a rebuilding phase and could benefit from Mitch Marner's playmaking abilities to mentor younger players and accelerate their development. And could you imagine Matvei Michkov and Mitch Marner on the same team? That would be so gross to watch. It would be certainly unreal. And his presence could provide a significant boost to their offensive production and power play efficiency. And number 2, I got the Utah Mammoths. So, of course, Utah Mammoths were looking to make a name for themselves. They almost made a playoff spot in the 2025 Stanley Cup playoffs. They were oh so close to making the playoffs, but they fell short in the Western Conference wildcard spot. I think they were, I don't know how many points out of the playoff spot they were, but all I know is that they were so close, and they have some great younger players. They have some great players in Clayton Keller and Logan Cooley, Dylan Guenther, and if you add Mitch Marner to the mix, that would be unreal. That would be a playoff team for sure if you have Mitch Marner on the team for the Utah Mammoth. Like I said, Utah Mammoth came so close to making the playoffs, but they fell a little bit short and missed out on the playoffs. But I think probably in 2026 or 2027 they could be a playoff team, and they could have Mitch Marner on the team. We'll just have to see if that'll be the team that he signs for. And then at number 3, my personal favorite, the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, I know a lot of you guys are going to be saying Mitch Marner shouldn't be on the Blackhawks. If Mitch Marner signs with the Blackhawks, this could ruin his career. No, Mitch Marner deserves to be on a contender like the Carolina Hurricanes, or Mitch Marner on the Blackhawks would absolutely suck. Blah, blah, blah. So that I heard you guys saying that you guys were unhappy with Mitch Marner being on the Blackhawks. But if you take a look at the Blackhawks, yes, I know they're not a playoff contender. Yes, I know that they're in a rebuild. But having somebody with playoff pedigree and experience in Mitch Marner could be something that the Blackhawks could go out for. And I did do an article about this on Blackhawk Up, and some of you guys on Twitter were very unhappy with that and kind of laughed. I know a lot of you guys don't like to see Mitch Marner in the Blackhawks sweater, and I know some of you guys were saying after that Bedard needs to leave Chicago. Well, here's the thing. If you didn't listen to kind of Bedard's end of season speech thing, whatever, he said dozens and dozens of times that he's not leaving Chicago. He's happy with being in Chicago. In fact, there's a whole article about this on Blackhawk Up, and I can put that article in the description along with my Mitch Marner article I did on Blackhawk Up about Mitch Marner, about the Blackhawks pushing all their chips in and signing Mitch Marner in free agency. I did do an article on that. I will put that article in the description for you guys to read. And if I can find that kind of Bedard article about him wanting to stay in Chicago, I will show that article to you guys as well. I didn't write the article on Blackhawk Up. It was somebody else that wrote the article, but I did write the article about the Blackhawks pushing in all their chips to get Mitch Marner. And could you imagine Mitch Marner and Connor Bedard on the same team? That would be so gross. And then if you add somebody like Michael Bisa or Porter Martone in the mix, man, oh man, am I feeling good about this Blackhawks team heading into next season. The only thing I probably wouldn't say that I'm feeling good about the Blackhawks is the coaching, because guys don't know, Jeff Blashill is now the head coach of the Chicago Blackhawks, and I'll get into that later on throughout this episode, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, Mitch Marner, Connor Bedard. Mitch Marner's playmaking considered Josh well with Connor Bedard's scoring ability, potentially create a dynamic offensive duo. So lots of other reasons to be excited about Mitch Marner potentially and possibly coming to the Blackhawks in the offseason, because you get to watch Mitch Marner and Connor Bedard both on the same team, and you guys can hate all you want, but you can't deny the fact that playing Mitch Marner with Connor Bedard would be unstoppable. It would be unstoppable. Probably the best top 3-5 duo in the NHL heading into next season. So that would be unreal for Mitch Marner to come over here to Chicago. And fingers crossed that he does, because I really want to see Mitch Marner in the Blackhawks uniform. And I'm personally a Mitch Marner fan. I actually do have a poster of him in my room. So fingers crossed that Mitch Marner signs with the Chicago Blackhawks in the offseason. Because as a Blackhawks fan, I would love that. As a Mitch Marner fan, I would love that as well. It's one of my favorite players to watch, and I would like to see him in a Blackhawks sweater heading into next season. And then number 4, I got the Pittsburgh Penguins. I know there were some people saying that that Mitch Marner could come to the Pittsburgh Penguins and play with Sidney Crosby. Mitch Marner and Sidney Crosby were teammates for Team Canada at the Four Nations, so they already have a little experience of playing with each other, so could work out in Pittsburgh. And Mitch Marner has produced at a point per game rate in each of the last 7 seasons, and could be a solid choice to play on the top line alongside Sidney Crosby. Again, teammates for Team Canada at the Four Nations, so they already know each other. I wouldn't say know each other very well, since they were only teammates with each other for a short amount of time. But Mitch Marner could still learn from Sidney Crosby, and he could bring his playmaking abilities to the group and rejuvenate that Pittsburgh Penguins offense. So I think that would be a great team to go to for Mitch Marner. And then number 5, this is where we get into the playoff contenders, the one that you guys were saying Mitch Marner should go to because he would be great there. And rightfully so, he would be great there. But again, still wouldn't mind seeing him in the Chicago Blackhawks sweater. But number 5, I got the Carolina Hurricanes. And fun fact, according to TSN's Pierre LeBrun, Mitch Marner was almost a member of the Carolina Hurricanes at the trade deadline for Mikko Rantanen. And of course, Mitch Marner decided not to waive his no movement clause, but there almost was a trade at the deadline according to TSN's Pierre LeBrun. He almost became a member of the Carolina Hurricanes for Mikko Rantanen, but there are reports still showing that the Hurricanes are still interested in pursuing Mitch Marner in the offseason. So it could very well happen for Mitch Marner to go to Carolina because, like I said, they are a contender, and I'm pretty sure Mitch Marner will still want to be with contenders and not rebuilding teams. But I'm hoping if he does want to be with contenders, that's great. But again, I'm still hoping for him to be with the Blackhawks, and he brings playoff experience to the Blackhawks. He brings a lot of playmaking skills to the Blackhawks, and can somewhat help them make it to the playoffs in the next couple years or so. But going back to the Hurricanes side, Mitch Marner's playmaking abilities could help with the Hurricanes' offense in these Stanley Cup playoffs and give them more offensive skills for that group. And then number 6, last team that I think he can be a great fit for, the Colorado Avalanche. So another playoff contender, at least hoping to stay competitive and still be a playoff contender. And the Avalanche, they have a lot of depth on their team. And they made a lot of notable trades this season, acquiring Scott Wedgwood, Mackenzie Blackwood, Brock Nelson, Charlie Coyle, Martin Necas, Jack Drury, and Ryan Lindgren. They also got their captain Gabriel Landeskog back. And fun fact, you guys probably already know this, but Mitch Marner and Nathan MacKinnon were teammates for Team Canada at the Four Nations and could likely become teammates again for Canada at the 2026 Olympics. And if he does sign for Colorado Avalanche, he can play on that first line with Gabriel Landeskog and Nathan MacKinnon, so he could substitute for Mikko Rantanen on that top line, and that will be still unreal to watch with Landeskog, MacKinnon, and Marner playing on the same line with each other. I think that will be unreal to watch. It's not as good as the Landeskog, MacKinnon, and Rantanen line, but this could still, be good too. I'm just saying it's not as good as the first line, like the Landeskog, MacKinnon, and Rantanen line. It's not going to be as good as that line, but it'll still be something for the Colorado Avalanche. But let me know you guys' thoughts down below in the comments. Which team do you see Mitch Marner playing for heading into next season? Because it's highly unlikely. There's no chance at all, no chance whatsoever that he is coming back to the Toronto Maple Leafs. It's not going to happen. He's going to play for another team heading to next season. He's not going to be in a Maple Leafs sweater heading to next season. So, let me know down in the comments below, what team do you see Mitch Marner playing for next season? As a Blackhawks fan, hopefully it's the Chicago Blackhawks, because you cannot beat the dynamic duo or the possibility of a dynamic duo between Connor Bedard and Mitch Marner. I think that'll be really, 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 really cool to watch. But speaking of Mitch Marner and Toronto Maple Leafs, we got some more Toronto Maple Leafs news. So Brandon Shanahan, he's not going to be returning as the Leafs president for next season. He is in the final season of a 6-year contract that he signed on May 14th of 2019. And the team announced, I guess for you guys, this will be yesterday because I'm currently recording this episode on a Thursday. Thursday, and May 22nd was on Thursday, obviously. So I guess for you guys, this will be yesterday. But yeah, the Maple Leafs announced yesterday that his contract would not be renewed, so he's not going to be coming back as the team president for next season. And this happened less than a week after the Maple Leafs season ended with a 6-1 loss to the Florida Panthers in Game 7 of the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs on May 18th of 2015. And Brandon Shanahan served as the Maple Leafs president for 11 seasons. He was hired as the Leafs team president on April 11th of 2014. And during his time with the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Maple Leafs have reached the Stanley Cup playoffs 9 times, but only had 2 playoff wins against the Tampa Bay Lightning in 2023, and of course this year against the Ottawa Senators. In the 2024-25 season, the Maple Leafs finished with a 52-26-4 record, and they won the Atlantic Division for the first time under head coach Craig Berube. And if you didn't know who created the core of Austin Matthews, William Nylander, Mitch Marner, and John Tavares, it was no other than Brandon Shanahan. Brandon Shanahan drafted Austin Matthews in 2016 NHL draft, drafted William Nylander in the 2014 NHL draft, drafted Mitch Marner in the 2015 NHL draft, and then he signed John Tavares as a free agent in 2018 because, of course, he was playing for the New York Islanders, and now he went to his hometown Toronto Maple Leafs. But he could be leaving the Maple Leafs. He possibly won't be with the Maple Leafs heading into next season. We'll just have to see how that will go. But before joining the Maple Leafs, Brandon Shanahan worked for the NHL, including 3 seasons as vice president of player safety. And as a player in the NHL, he played 21 seasons in the NHL, winning 3 Stanley Cups with the Detroit Red Wings, and he was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame in 2013. Let me know you guys' thoughts about this. Do you feel, especially if you're a Leafs fan, how do you feel about Brandon Shanahan stepping down as team president of the Toronto Maple Leafs? How you feel about him not returning as team president? Where does this go going forward? Just let me know down in the comments below about that decision. But now let's go into the topic that I really didn't want to discuss or really didn't want to say on the Hockey Talk with TG podcast, and that is the Chicago Blackhawks hiring Jeff Blashill as their next head coach. 42nd head coach in team history. He replaces Anders Sorensen, who was the team's interim head coach for, I think, half the games of the 2024-25 season after the Hawks fired Luke Richardson back in December of 2024. And this is the second time that Jeff Blashill is an NHL head coach. He previously served as head coach of the Detroit Red Wings from 2015 to 2022, compiling a 204, 261, and 72 record over 7 seasons. And before joining the Blackhawks, Jeff Blashill spent 3 seasons as an assistant head coach with the Tampa Bay Lightning under head coach John Cooper, contributing to the team's playoff appearances during that span. And this is what General Manager Kyle Davidson had to say on hiring Jeff Blashill. He said this, and I quote, "Jeff is an incredibly smart and talented coach who boasts more than 25 years of coaching experience across developmental leagues, the NHL, and the world stage. He strives when in a position to develop young players and has shown that he's capable of blending that into overall team success. A vision and philosophy we share for where we are today and where we see our team in the future. We couldn't be more excited for what's to come under Jeff's direction." And that is what Kyle Davidson had to say on hiring Jeff Blashill. And take a look at Jeff Blashill's coaching career. He coached in the AHL. He coached, I'm guessing, for Team USA because he's from Detroit. So he coached Team USA. He, I think, led Team USA to a bronze medal in the 2018 IIHF World Championships. And take a look at where the Blackhawks stand. They finished with a record of 25, 46, and 11. They missed the playoffs in 7 of his 8 past seasons. And last time the Blackhawks won a playoff spot was in 2020. And the last time the Hawks won the Stanley Cup was in 2015. So, yeah, it's been a long time. It's been a decade. It's been a decade since the Hawks have won the Stanley Cup. And I'm hoping that they can win the Stanley Cup sometime soon. Hoping in 2027, 2028 that they win a Stanley Cup. But we'll just have to see how everything will go. Now we're going to be talking about Game 2 of the Western Conference Finals. So Game 2 of the Western Conference Finals will come on today at 7 o'clock p.m. Central Time. This will air on ESPN for you guys to watch. And the Stars lead this best-of-7 series 1-0 after a 6-3 win in Game 1. 5-goal third period to lead the Stars to a 6-3 win in Game 1. They were down 3-1 to the Oilers heading into the third period. And of course, the Oilers had goals from Leon Draisaitl, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, and Evan Bouchard. And the Dallas Stars, they capitalized on the power play. They had 3 power play goals in that third period alone. Of course, goals coming from Miro Heiskanen, Mikael Granlund, who they picked up at the trade deadline. Or they picked him up in the trade with San Jose Sharks at some point during the season. Maybe it wasn't at the deadline, but it was some point during the season that the Stars had picked up Mikael Granlund from the Sharks, and they also picked up Cody Ceci from the Sharks. And the Stars also had another power play goal from Matt Duchene, so they get power play goals from Miro Heiskanen, Mikael Granlund, and Matt Duchene in that third period alone. And fun fact, this was the first time since 1992 that Edmonton had allowed 3 power play goals in a single game. And another player that led the way, or I should say another thing that happened for the Dallas Stars to win 6-3 was the standout performance from Tyler Seguin. He had 2 goals and 1 assist for a 3-point night to lead the Stars to a 6-3 win over the Oilers in Game 1. Here are some keys to the game for Game 2 of the Western Conference Finals for the puck drops at 7 o'clock p.m. Central Time. For the Edmonton Oilers, they had to improve on their penalty kill after allowing those 3 power play goals in Game 1. Edmonton must tighten their penalty kill to prevent Dallas from capitalizing on man advantage situations. And their penalty kill is actually not doing great. Their penalty kill is 15th in the Stanley Cup playoffs, so it's not been working out well for the Edmonton Oilers, and so they must avoid unnecessary penalties if they want to win Game 2 and have a chance to even up the series at 1 game apiece heading home for Game 3 on Sunday. Number 2, we need to see them sustain offensive pressure. So, of course, the Oilers had a lot of offensive pressure early on throughout this game. They need to bring that back for Game 2. And another thing, we need to see the Stars show out. Of course, the Stars, no pun intended, certainly showed out for the Edmonton Oilers. Of course, they got goals from Leon Draisaitl, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, and Evan Bouchard. And Leon Draisaitl is, I think, second in the league in playoffs in points with 19, I believe. Of course, Mikko Rantanen is first with 20. And I think Leon Draisaitl is second with 19. I think he's second in playoffs, and I think after him is Connor McDavid. So yeah, we need to see the Stars for the Oilers, again, no pun intended, show out for the Oilers. They want a chance to even up the series at 1 game apiece. And for the Dallas Stars, we need to see a Mikko Rantanen point. If they want to take a 2-0 series lead, they got to count on Mikko Rantanen to at least get a point in this one and get on the board with a goal. We need to see a goal from Mikko Rantanen in this one. So forget point. We need to see a goal. Well, actually, a goal is going to add to a point, but I'm just saying in particular, we need to see a goal from Mikko Rantanen in this one. We need to see a 2-goal, maybe another hat trick from Mikko Rantanen in this playoffs if the Dallas Stars want to take a 2-0 series lead. And then another thing, we need to see more depth scored from Dallas. They certainly got a lot of that in Game 1. We need to see that for Game 2. And I know most people picked the Stars to win the series because of their depth. The Oilers don't have that much depth on their team like the Stars do. The Oilers, I said this for last year's Western Conference Final when these two teams squared off. And I'm going to say it again. The Oilers have the superstars. The Stars have the depth. It's superstars versus depth. And I can understand why Dallas was picked to win this series. At least most people pick Dallas to win this series because they have a lot of depth and talent on their team. The Oilers, yes, they do have talent. They have the superstars, but they don't have the depth like Dallas does. But I'm still sticking with the Oilers nonetheless to, win this series. It's not over yet. It's far from over. So there's still time for the Edmonton Oilers to come back and, win the series. It's far from over. I can see this going to 6 or 7 games. I said Oilers in 6. My prediction video went out in my prediction video for this, so it could very well be in 6 games. But we'll just have to see how that will go for this series. I'm actually liking this series overall than the Eastern Conference Final one, mostly because the Hurricanes just aren't doing well in the Eastern Conference Finals. And the Oilers and Stars, they have a lot of talent on both sides. So I actually kind of enjoy this series better than I do with the Eastern Conference Final one. Because Eastern Conference Final one, I did say Florida in 7, but it kind of seems one-sided, at least for these first 2 games. But again, far from over, so still time for the Hurricanes to come back and win that series against the defending Cup champs. We'll just have to see. I picked Florida to win that series against Carolina. And then for the West, I picked Edmonton to win against Dallas. But we'll just have to see how that will go. If the Stars and Panthers end up facing each other in the Stanley Cup Final, that will be something. That will be something because there's a lot of Finnish talent on that team. But we'll just have to see if that does end up being the matchup. But anyway, that is going to do it for this episode of Hockey Talk with TG Podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in as always. Really do appreciate it. As always, do me a favor, hit that like, subscribe button on the YouTube channel if you have not already. Make sure to follow Hockey Talk with TG Podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. And you subscribe to the YouTube channel. We are with you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 11:30 a.m. to noon Central Time, 12:30 p.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Time. So make sure to give this podcast a follow if you are not already. Your number 1 podcast for all things hockey. Both of you guys have a great weekend. Hope you have a great rest of your day. God first as always. Be blessed. I'll see you guys Monday for another episode of the Hockey Talk with TG Podcast. Take care.